The monastery bell rang at 4 in the morning, just as it had every day for the past 3 weeks. I rolled out of my narrow bed in the guest quarters of St. Benedict's Retreat Center in Guthrie, Oklahoma, my body protesting the early hour and the gnawing emptiness in my stomach. My name is Oleander Voss, and I'd come here seeking answers to questions I couldn't even properly form. At 31, I felt like I was drowning in a life that looked perfect from the outside. Successful law practice in Tulsa, beautiful house, all the material comforts anyone could want. But inside, I felt hollow, like I was starving for something I couldn't name. The retreat master, Brother Augustine, had suggested a 40-day fast as a way to strip away the distractions and hear what my soul was really trying to tell me. I'd been skeptical, but desperate enough to try anything. The chapel was already half full when I arrived, other retreatants settling into the wooden pews for morning prayers. I'd chosen a spot near the back, but this morning, someone was already sitting in my usual place. He was tall and lean, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it. And when he looked up at me, I felt something stir in my chest that had nothing to do with hunger. His eyes were the color of winter's sky, pale gray blue that seemed to see right through me. "Sorry," he whispered, starting to move over. I didn't realize this was someone's spot. "It's fine," I said, settling beside him. "I'm Oleander." "Caspian," he said, then caught himself. "I mean Cass." Caspian sounds pretentious. Despite the early hour and my empty stomach, I found myself smiling. "I like Caspian. It's distinctive." "So, is Oleander named after the flower?" "Unfortunately, my mother was going through a botanical phase." His quiet laugh was like music in the solemn space. When the prayers began, I found myself hyper-aware of his presence beside me. The way he held his hands, the soft sound of his breathing, the warmth radiating from his body in the cool morning air. After the service, we walked out together into the pre-dawn darkness. "How long have you been here?" I asked. 2 weeks. "You, 3. Are you doing the fast too?" He nodded. 40 days. Brother Augustine thinks it will help me figure out what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. "What do you do now?" "I'm a teacher. High school English in Enid. But lately, I feel like I'm just going through the motions." I knew that feeling intimately. "What are you hoping to find here?" "Honestly, I have no idea. I just know that the life I was living wasn't really living at all." We'd reached the fork in the path where he would turn toward the men's dormitory, and I would continue to the guest quarters. Neither of us moved. "Would you like to walk together tomorrow morning?" he asked. "After prayers." "I'd like that," I said, and meant it more than I'd meant anything in a long time. The next morning, we walked the meditation path through the woods behind the monastery. The early light filtered through the oak trees, casting long shadows on the leaf-strewn ground. My stomach cramped with hunger, but I found that talking with Caspian made it easier to ignore. "Tell me about your life before this," he said as we followed the winding trail. "Boring corporate law, mostly contract negotiations and mergers. Good money, terrible hours, no real purpose." I kicked at a pile of leaves. "I haven't had a meaningful conversation with another human being in months. And now I'm having one." He stopped walking and turned to look at me. "Are you always this direct?" "The fast strips away pretense," I said. "I don't have the energy for small talk anymore." "Good. I hate small talk." We found a fallen log and sat, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. The hunger was a constant presence now, but it felt different when I was with Caspian, less like deprivation and more like anticipation. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Anything. Have you ever felt like you were living the wrong life? Like you were supposed to be someone completely different?" "Every day for the past 5 years. What would the right life look like?" I considered the question, watching him as he waited for my answer. In the morning light, his face was soft and open, and I found myself wanting to tell him things I'd never told anyone. "I think it would involve being honest about who I am," I said carefully. "About what I want." "And what do you want?" The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to tell him about the dreams I'd been having, about the way I felt when I looked at him, about the loneliness that had been eating me alive for years. But we'd known each other for less than 24 hours, and I was afraid of scaring him away. I want to stop being afraid, I said instead. Of what? Of being myself. Of wanting things I'm not supposed to want. He was quiet for a long moment. I know that feeling, he said finally. I've been afraid my whole life. Of what? Of being honest about who I am. About what I feel. When he looked at me then, I saw something in his eyes that made my heart race despite the weakness from fasting. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. Caspian, I said, his name feeling like a prayer on my lips. Yeah. I'm glad you were in my pew yesterday. His smile was like sunrise. Me too. We fell into a rhythm over the next week. Morning prayers together, then long walks through the woods. Afternoons spent in the library, reading in comfortable silence. Evenings talking quietly on the porch of the guest quarters, sharing stories from our lives and dreams for the future. The fast was getting harder. By day 20, I was lightheaded and shaky, my body consuming itself for fuel. But there was something clarifying about the hunger, something that made everything else sharp and bright. I keep thinking about food, Caspian said one evening as we sat watching the sunset. Not just eating, but the ritual of it. Sharing meals with people you care about. What's your favorite meal? I asked. My grandmother's Sunday dinner. Pot roast and potatoes, green beans from her garden, cornbread that was still warm from the oven. He closed his eyes, lost in the memory. She'd make enough for an army, and the whole family would crowd around her table. It was about more than food. It was about love, connection, belonging. That sounds beautiful. What about you? What do you miss most? I thought about it. Coffee in the morning. Not just the caffeine, but the ritual of it. The smell, the warmth of the cup in my hands, the few minutes of quiet before the day started. We'll appreciate it more when we break our fast, he said. Everything will taste better, feel more precious. Is that what this is about? Learning to appreciate what we have. Maybe. Or maybe it's about learning what we actually need versus what we think we need. And what do you need? He turned to look at me, and in the fading light, his eyes were serious. I need to stop being afraid of my own feelings. I need to stop pretending to be someone I'm not. Who are you really? I'm a man who's been in love with the wrong people his whole life. Wrong because they were never going to love me back the way I needed to be loved. My heart hammered against my ribs. In what way is that? Completely. Honestly. Without reservation. When he reached for my hand, I didn't pull away. His fingers were cold from the evening air, but his touch sent warmth shooting up my arm. Oleander, he said, and the way he said my name made it sound like something sacred. Yeah. I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hit me like a physical blow. I've been feeling the same thing, but I've been too afraid to name it, too afraid to hope that he might feel it too. I think I'm falling in love with you too, I whispered. When he leaned in to kiss me, soft and tentative in the gathering darkness, I felt like I was finally, truly alive for the first time in years. The kiss changed everything. We spent the next few days in a strange state of suspended animation, aware of each other in a way that made the air between us electric. Every casual touch, his hand on my arm, our shoulders brushing as we walked, sent sparks through my body. This is crazy, I said one afternoon as we sat in the library, ostensibly reading, but really just stealing glances at each other. What is this? Us. I've known you for less than 2 weeks. Sometimes, he said simply. Sometimes you meet someone and everything just clicks into place. Have you ever felt this way before? Never. I've had crushes, relationships, but nothing like this. Nothing that felt so inevitable. I knew what he meant. Despite the hunger, despite the strange circumstances, despite the fact that we were both still figuring out who we were, being with him felt like coming home. That night, we broke protocol and met in the meditation garden after evening prayers. The other retreat ants had gone to bed, and we had the space to ourselves. I've been thinking about what you said, I told him as we walked among the roses. About being in love with the wrong people. What about it? I've never been in love with anyone. Not really. I've dated, had relationships, but I always felt like I was acting a part. Like I was trying to be the person I thought I should be instead of who I actually was. And now I feel like I'm finally myself. Like you see me, the real me, and you're not running away. He stopped walking and turned to face me. Why would I run away? Because I'm a mess. Because I don't know what I want to do with my life. Because I'm falling in love with you, and I don't know what that means for either of us. It means we figure out together, he said, reaching up to touch my face. It means we stop being afraid and start being honest. What are you honest about? I'm honest about the fact that I think about you constantly. That I've never wanted anyone the way I want you. That this fast has made me realize that I've been starving for connection my whole life. And you're the first person who's made me feel full. His words broke something open inside me. Caspian, I know we're supposed to be focused on spiritual things here, but I think this is spiritual. I think love is the most spiritual thing there is. When he kissed me again, it was deeper than before, full of promise and possibility. I felt myself melting into him, all the walls I'd built around my heart crumbling like paper. I love you, I whispered against his lips. I love you too, he whispered back, and in that moment, I believed that everything was going to be okay. The next morning, Brother Augustine called us both to his office. My heart hammered as we walked across the courtyard, sure that we were in trouble, that somehow our growing relationship had violated some unspoken rule. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chairs across from his desk. He was a kind man in his 70s, with gentle eyes and a way of speaking that made you feel like he could see straight into your soul. I've been watching you too, he said, and I felt my face flush with embarrassment. Brother, we haven't done anything inappropriate, Caspian said quickly. I'm not suggesting you have, but I can see that you care for each other, that you're struggling with feelings that go beyond simple friendship. I waited for the lecture, the reminder that we were supposed to be focused on spiritual matters, not earthly attractions. Tell me, Brother Augustine said, what do you think God wants for you? The question caught me off guard. I don't know. What does your heart tell you? I looked at Caspian, then back at the old monk. That love is sacred. That finding someone who sees you completely and loves you anyway is a gift. And you, he asked Caspian. I think that denying love is a sin, Caspian said quietly. I think that God wants us to be honest about who we are and who we love. Brother Augustine nodded slowly. I've been a monk for 50 years, he said. I've seen many people come through these doors searching for something. Some are looking for God, some for meaning, some for peace. But you know what I've learned? We shook our heads. The people who find what they're looking for are the ones who learn to love themselves first, who learn to accept who they are without apology. And sometimes that love extends to another person. So we're not in trouble. I asked, trouble? For finding love? For being honest about your feelings? He smiled. That's not trouble, my son. That's blessing. Relief flooded through me. What do we do now? You continue your fast. You continue your spiritual journey. And you support each other through both. And after, you decide what kind of life you want to build together. The last week of our fast was the hardest. My body was running on fumes, and every step felt like walking through water. But my mind was clearer than it had ever been, and my feelings for Caspian had crystallized into something unshakable. We spent hours talking about the future, about what we wanted our lives to look like when we left this place. I want to quit my job, I told him one evening as we sat in the chapel after evening prayers. I want to do something that matters. What would that look like? I don't know yet. Maybe legal aid work, helping people who can't afford lawyers. Maybe teaching. Maybe something completely different. What about your house? Your life in Tulsa? What about it? It's just stuff. It's not who I am. He was quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about leaving Enid too. Maybe we could, I don't know, find a place together. Start over somewhere new. Is that what you want? More than anything, the idea of building a life with him, of waking up next to him every morning and falling asleep in his arms every night, made my chest tight with longing. Where would we go? Anywhere. Somewhere we can be ourselves without apology. Somewhere we can build something real. I love you, I said, the words coming easier each time I said them. I love you too, more than I thought it was possible to love someone. The night before our fast ended, neither of us could sleep. We met in the garden again, drawn to each other like magnets. Tomorrow we eat, he said, his arms around me as we stood under the stars. Tomorrow we feast, I agreed. Are you nervous? About breaking the fast? Or about what comes after? Both. I pulled back to look at him. Even in the darkness, I could see the love in his eyes, the certainty that had grown between us over the past 40 days. I'm not nervous about us, I said. I'm nervous about everything else, but not about us. Good, he said, and kissed me with a tenderness that made my knees weak. The next morning, Brother Augustine led the ceremony to break our fast. There were 12 of us who had completed the full 40 days, and we gathered in the dining hall for the first time in over a month. The meal was simple, broth, bread, fruit, but it tasted like the most exquisite feast I'd ever experienced. Every bite was a revelation, every flavor intense and bright after weeks of abstinence. But the real feast was watching Caspian across the table, seeing the joy on his face as he savored each mouthful, feeling the connection between us that had only grown stronger through our shared discipline. How do you feel? He asked me afterward as we walked through the grounds. Different, lighter, like I've been carrying around weight I didn't even know was there. And now I feel free. We spent the afternoon packing our few belongings, preparing to leave the monastery that had become our sanctuary. The thought of returning to the real world was daunting, but the thought of facing it with Caspian made it feel possible. I have a confession, he said as we loaded our cars. What? I already put in my resignation at the school. I sent the letter 2 weeks ago. Really? I knew I wasn't going back to that life. With or without you, I was going to find something different. And with me? With you, I want to find something beautiful. We drove in convoy to a small town called Okeen, about an hour from the monastery. I found a little house for rent online, nothing fancy but clean and quiet, with a big front porch and a garden that needed tending. This is it, he asked as we pulled into the driveway. This is it. What do you think? I think it's perfect. Moving in together felt natural, like we'd been doing it for years instead of days. We unpacked our few belongings and went shopping for groceries, marveling at the abundance of choices after weeks of deprivation. I want to cook for you, Caspian said as we wandered through the market. A real meal. Something special. What did you have in mind? Everything. I want to make you a feast. We filled our cart with fresh vegetables, good bread, wine, cheese, everything that looked delicious and appealing. Back at the house, Caspian took over the kitchen while I unpacked books and tried to make the place feel like home. Dinner's ready. He called an hour later, and I found the dining room transformed. Candles on the table, flowers from the garden, music playing softly from his phone. This is beautiful, I said, overwhelmed by the care he'd put into everything. You're beautiful, he said, pulling out my chair. The meal was incredible. Roasted chicken with herbs, fresh vegetables, warm bread with butter. But the real nourishment was being with him, sharing this moment of abundance after so much emptiness. I have something to tell you, I said as we finished eating. What? I called my old firm today. I'm not going back. What will you do? I don't know yet, but I figure we'll figure it out together. Together, he repeated like he was testing the word. Is that what you want? More than anything. After dinner, we sat on the front porch, full in content for the first time in weeks. The evening was warm, full of the sound of crickets and the distant murmur of wind through the trees. Oleander, he said, my name soft on his lips. Yeah, I want to make love to you. The words sent heat racing through my body. I want that too. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He took my hand and led me inside, up the stairs to the bedroom we'd been sharing, but hadn't yet truly made our own. The room was bathed in moonlight, soft and romantic and perfect. I've never done this before, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Done what? Been with someone I actually loved. Someone who loved me back. Neither have I, he said, his hands framing my face. We'll figure out together. When he kissed me, it was different from our previous kisses. Deeper, more urgent, full of the promise of what was to come. I felt myself melting into him, all the careful control I'd maintained for 40 days finally dissolving. I love you, he whispered against my neck, his hands moving to the buttons of my shirt. I love you too, I whispered back, my own hands exploring the planes of his chest, the warmth of his skin. We moved together slowly, reverently, each touch a discovery. After weeks of denying ourselves everything, the simple pleasure of skin against skin was almost overwhelming. You're so beautiful, he said, his voice rough with emotion. So are you. When we finally came together, it was like coming home. Every movement, every sigh, every whispered endearment felt sacred, like we were creating something holy between us. We fasted together, he said afterward, his arms around me as we lay tangled in the sheets, both of us breathless and glowing. And now we feast. I finished pressing a kiss to his chest. On each other, he said, his voice full of wonder. On love, I corrected. On this beautiful thing we found. Outside, the Oklahoma night stretched endlessly, full of stars and possibilities. Inside our little house, we held each other close, two souls who had found their perfect match, who had learned that sometimes the greatest abundance comes after the greatest emptiness. We had fasted together, stripping away everything that didn't matter, and now we were feasting on what did, on love, on connection, on the sacred act of being completely known and completely accepted. What happens now? I asked as sleep began to pull me under. Now we build a life together, he said, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my back. Now we love each other every day in every way we can. That sounds like a good plan. The best plan, he agreed, and kissed the top of my head. As I drifted off to sleep in his arms, I thought about the journey that had brought us here, from emptiness to fullness, from loneliness to love, from denying ourselves to celebrating what we'd found. We had fasted together, and now we would feast together for the rest of our lives.